Hey Larry,
Hey, how you doing, man?
good. How are you?
Excellent. I like your background.
Yeah, it's in my neighborhood. I don't know if you want to go because they're terror cards rather than tarot. So
I
I haven't. I got to get a set of those, I guess.
love the hands.
Yeah, it's from my neighborhood in Jackson Heights.
Ah,
But I have the Goetia tarot cards, but I don't have the terror cards. But I think it's a misprint. So how's Wesselmania? How's Larry's World?
everything's going really great, man. I'm writing my memoir right now.
Awesome.
I'm having a lot of fun cobbling that together. I've written small pieces um, throughout my life. I've kept journals and um, wrote stuff down as it happened, and now I've collected it all together and I'm adding more stuff to it and even a bit embellishing a few things too because um, they're not. I mean, some of them work as anecdotes, as opposed to full-fledged stories with a beginning, middle, and an end, and all of that. So I thought as long as I, you know, focus on not being boring, and making sure that everything is entertaining, I think it'll be terrific. I don't have to tell everything. I mean, that's one of the things that is first intimidating when you're writing a memoir. Is like, oh my God, I've had a long life. I have to include everything. You don't
And
really have to include. You just include the best stuff.
And do you start from, day one, your first childhood memory, or and go chronologically, or do you go with what's the most interesting and then sort of work your
Well,
way?
I initially, I mean, now that I'm putting it together, I'm 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 doing it chronologically only for my own benefit, so that I can fill in the gaps and put everything in order. Because sometimes I'm a little foggy on dates and stuff, and I want to make sure everything is in chronological order. And then whether it's published that way or not, I don't know yet. If it'll be chronological, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with doing it chronologically. Um,
Did
but
you did you read
yeah,
Klaus?
that's how I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, did you read Klaus Kinski's biography? Apparently, it's fake though. No,
No, no.
I heard it's
You had
good.
a ghostwriter wrote
I,
it.
I don't know. I haven't cracked it, but it's on my shelf somewhere. But I've heard there's outrageous stories, but a lot of them are made up. So what
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. What were you going to say about it?
I was just going to ask you, like, at what stage are you at the memoir? Are you three-quarters in? Are you halfway? Are you
I'm about, I would say a little less than halfway.
okay?
And it's funny you bring up Klaus Kinski. Did you know that I have a story about Klaus Kinski?
No, but I'd love to hear it.
Well, let me see. I actually have it written down. Let me. I wasn't prepared for this. Let me see if I can quickly find it. It'll be better if I read it
Reciting from his memoir,
from the mem.
Mr. Wessel. Is it in your memoir?
It is.
Oh,
It's
cool.
included in my memoir,
Oh, cool.
and it's all about his funeral rites. Do you know anything about that?
No, but it's one of my favorite Jean Genet books. I have about four copies of it.
Let's see here. Um, oh,
um,
find it for you here.
uh, well, I allot an hour and a half for these meetings, so
Oh, okay,
take your time
that's a lot of time.
if you've got it.
Sorry to eat up time looking for this, but it'll be worth it. You'll dig it.
What is it? I always get it wrong. Ultra Megalopolis, which I really enjoyed, and about LA during, I guess, the mid to late 90s. And I enjoyed the Death in Hollywood, or the Hollywood Mystique. I enjoyed that John Gilmore. Both of those are at 2.5 hours, but
Yeah, those are
enjoyable.
Those are really long
And then
films.
I saw the new one, Palace of Wonders, which is not as grim or dark
Yeah.
but a very, very, very charming about kind of collectors. It's sort of assorted um, uh, folks who the main thing is like collecting or am I getting those right?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, are people with fantastic collections, but also there are artists sprinkled in throughout it.
Right, the photographer who hung out with Charles Bukowski, that was
Oh,
interesting. Yeah,
wonderful Michael Montfort.
yeah,
And sadly, he's no longer with us.
yeah. When was that footage shot? I think it was.
Well, over the course of like the last 20 years, actually,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all stuff I was working on. It's funny, I originally set out to make a film about collectors.
right.
And I, the very first thing I shot was that collection of Andy Warhol on paper
Oh yeah,
that this collector had. And I was,
he was kind of a Warhol superstar, right? That guy.
well, the
He was in
guy,
the films, wasn't he?
yeah, Louis Walden
Yeah,
was actually, he's no longer with us either, unfortunately. But
yeah,
he was hired and supported by this Andy Warhol collector. Um, and he talks, that's the focus of what he talks about is this collector and his enormous, his collection of Warhol, which rivals, it's like a museum collection of Warhol. Um,
yeah. And what else? Let me get the title right of the oh, Sex, Death, and the Hollywood Mystique. This is
yeah,
basically around John Gilmore, who knew James Dean and has some interesting stories about that. You know, sort of firsthand stories about the world at that time as far as the Hollywood world. And then he actually knew Charles Schmid, Schmid, the
yeah,
Pied Piper of Tucson. Yeah, that was interesting too. I don't know if that he references. John does a radio show that Charles Schmidt did, where he I mean, he's an actor, John himself, but he said that this guy, Charles Schmidt, was like the consummate actor in that it was all this radio show demonstrated like what a great con man he was. Or
yeah. He's actually, of all of Gilmore's books, the one about Schmidt, Cold Blooded, was my favorite one.
okay,
Because he was such an oddball character.
yeah, yeah,
He actually was one of these serial killers. There's a number of serial killers who have this Elvis fixation, and he was one of them. And he actually thought
Jesus,
he looked like
yeah.
Elvis,
Well, he dyed his hair like Elvis dyed his hair, and
and he was very very short.
yeah,
So he stuffed his boots full of tin cans to make himself taller.
yeah,
And he also couldn't play the guitar, so he attached a tape recorder inside of the guitar and had a hidden switch, so that when he was about to play, he'd flick the switch and mime playing the guitar.
and the teenagers, bought it
Yeah,
because I think they were just so technically unsophisticated that it was they bought it as him really playing. I had heard he put a radio in his guitar, but it was a
maybe that was it.
yeah. I don't know. They all sound and where he would have found uh yeah, I'd heard he put a radio in his guitar and then pretending he was playing.
Well,
But
that might be more haphazard, unless it was a radio transmitter.
then yeah, I don't know. He did something with his nose and man, I don't know. He's a weird guy. They made that movie. What was it called? The Todd Killings, which is sort of based on. Did you see that?
Oh,
It actually has his family life because I think Schmidt's family owned a nursing home or something, and I think they had to sell it for his defense. And I
huh.
guess F. Lee Bailey. This is all in the film, in your film, and I really and boy, when John recounts the Tate LaBianca night. That was pretty chilling. I guess he's
Yeah.
reading from his book, but my God.
Oh, just awful. And
Yeah.
I I'm more a fan of Sharon Tate than I am Charlie Manson.
Right. But it's kind of
I,
like if you grew up, at that time, it's kind of like but also in Ultra Megalopolis, the fellow was sort of the blue makeup right under his eyes,
oh,
talking about his prison experience and actually his
he
his
was actually cellmates with,
cellmates at yeah, that's all fascinating too.
and
And
that's like one of the fun things about making documentaries is you just never know when something like that is gonna happen. It was just a happen chance. I was interviewing the goddess Bunny for a documentary I was making about drag queens, and this guy, he was a hustler, on Santa Monica Boulevard, and and Bunny's whole apartment, she opened it up to all these hustlers, and then there were all kinds of characters, street characters, living with her in this apartment, and I guess paying her rent probably. That was probably the deal, and he was there sharing couch space with one of her drag queen friends, and he somehow the subject of Manson came up, and he chimed in and he said, I knew Charlie.
goodness,
And then
yeah.
he totally, and then he recounted his whole experience. And I was lucky to be there and catch that
Wow.
on video, because the story he tells, I've never seen it in print anywhere. I know that Manson was attacked in prison by a Hare Krishna guy who splashed him with a flammable liquid and set him on fire. But this guy was there. He put out
Right.
the fire. He
He
saved.
put out the fire. Jesus Christ.
You know what? I tell you what. I'll just. I can't find this damn story, but I'll just tell it. I'll just wing it. See if I can improvise
Okay.
like a good jazz artist. But anyway, yeah. This story is just mind-boggling. I had a friend whose wife invited me over for dinner, and we had a nice. She was this Italian lady, and she is a great cook, and she made us this great dinner, and she was telling us the story about Klaus Kinski, and her girlfriend in Italy was really close with Kinski, and I guess Kinski ended up in what's the name of that place where they in Northern California, on the
Esalen?
outside of San Francisco,
No.
Sausalito. Uh,
Sausalito, yeah.
People live in houseboats there, and he lived in a. I don't know that he lived in a houseboat there, but nearby, um, my friend's wife's friend had moved to Northern California and was friendly with Klaus Kinski and Klaus Kinski's girlfriend at the time. And they were all living up in Northern California near Sausalito. So she gets a phone call in the middle of the night, and it's her friend from up north telling her that Klaus Kinski had just passed away, and that they're planning. Their plans are just really, really fast, but they're planning to have him cremated, and then have a funeral ceremony for him at sea, and it's going to take place the next day. And so, would she be able to drive up to Sausalito from LA? So she did. She spent the night driving all the way up to Sausalito. She gets there before daybreak, and she has instructions to meet her friend at the docks in Sausalito, and she does. And she ends up at the docks, and at this little boat, and her friend's on the boat, and there were two other people on the boat who she didn't know, and they were waiting for the next party. There's going to be a fifth person showing up, and this fifth person showed up wearing a black robe, like a monk's robe, with the hood pulled over his face. You couldn't see him, but it was Werner Herzog.
Wow.
And he was the last person to get on the boat. And they went out to sea, and it was a really, really foggy morning. I mean, in San Francisco, the fog just is so thick, it's like a wall.
And what did they have, the ashes of Kinski on the boat? Were they gonna? Yeah.
The ashes in an urn, and they had other things set up too for this ritual. And so they had a Victrola on board the vessel, and they played this Rossini opera, and apparently it was Kinski's favorite piece of Rossini, and he was going to play Rossini either in a film or a play, I forgot which. Just before he died, he was rehearsing for it, and so they set off as soon as Herzog got on board the vessel. They set off to sea.
Are these all instructions per his will? Okay.
Oh yeah, these were his last wishes they were carrying out.
Got it. Okay.
And so they just keep chugging along, and they can't even see the horizon. They can't see the land. Before you know it, they're all socked in, and they're just surrounded by fog. And somebody makes a decision, this is a good place to disperse the cremains. And so they open up the vessel, and they each take turns sticking their hand inside the vessel and tossing out some of Klaus's remains. Well, it was so cold and windy and foggy that the cremains just flipped back and just covered everybody in cremains and in pulverized bones. You know, they're all covered.
Yeah, because it's not actually ashes; it's chunky stuff that isn't. Yeah, it's gnarly shit. Yeah,
pulverized bones is what it is. And so the urn was passed to the next person. The same thing happened again. They tossed the cremains and got covered with Klaus all over, you know, in their eyes and their nose and their mouths. Like all five of them were just covered with Klaus's cremains. Jesus. And then the leader of that group, I forgot exactly who it was, said, now it is time for us to eat. And they opened up a picnic basket, and they had pieces of cheese and meats and all kinds of fruit, and but no utensils, and wine to wash it down. Well, they all picked up pieces of food, and they were instructed to eat. As they're eating it, it's all mixed with Klaus, and they're like eating the food and eating Klaus, and it was almost like an act of cannibalism or necrophilia.
But these are Klaus's last wishes, so you can't back down.
No, obeying them.
You can't back out. Yeah.
And so in a way, I like to think that maybe, you know, he was kind of devilish. Maybe he had this was his last laugh on his.
Yeah. Boy, yeah, I've heard the ashes thrown to sea. You got to watch where the wind's going, or you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, there's a funny scene in what is it, the Big Lebowski.
Oh, that's probably where I got it from.
About
But yeah, sheesh. I have the Klaus bio, but I haven't. So I have some prepared questions when there's a lull. Has it been confirmed that LaVey played the devil in Rosemary's Baby? I suspect maybe it's just the eyes. Has that been confirmed?
That's still a mystery to me.
Okay.
He certainly claims that he was, and I don't doubt him, because his life was just so outrageous and so full of fantastic adventures that it would not surprise me in the least.
Yeah, and I think it would have, this is pre Manson. I think it probably would have tickled Polanski's fancy that he would have, because I think I buy maybe the eyes, when he had that close up of the eyes of the devil in Rosemary's Baby. That could be LaVey's, maybe not the hands with the suit, which I apparently is in this other film, Asylum of Satan. They used the outfit from the devil in this other cheapo movie.
Really?
But
Even prior to Rosemary's Baby?
after Rosemary's Baby, they're like, we'll take the devil suit and put it on our cheap movie.
Oh,
It's in something weird. It's like a double feature that something weird has with Children of Satan and this other film, The Asylum of Satan. But I digress. It's hot here. But I think, you know, because Polanski was an atheist and he didn't think anything of this devil stuff. It probably I could see maybe it would tickle his fancy to actually have, you know, Church of Satan leader as part of it. But also it's like, how do you keep that a secret without people saying? But yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out to you. And then after I saw Ultra Megalopolis, my question was, are we living in a madhouse, a fun house, or an outhouse? I thought that was great. It was like, I lived in LA in 1992, and it just was like, and also like, I'm mainly in New York, and when I've had experience with the Black Muslims on the street and everything, so it was nice to see the you know, be able to, in the comfort of my own home, like take a tour of LA at that time. Did it seems like some of that stuff I would have seen on a public access show too. Did you have a public access show, or did you just have your camera and you just took a lot of footage? And
I just always have my camera with me, and on that particular film, Ultra Megalopolis, um, I I think the idea behind it was a field trip I took when I was a kid in elementary school, because I grew up in the suburbs, you know, far away from Los Angeles and downtown LA and all of that, and in a very nice suburb, you know, place that I live in now called Manhattan Beach. And so we took field trips periodically to Los Angeles to go to the museums and places like that. And one of the things that really opened my eyes were the sight of people ranting and raving on the city streets to apparently no audience at all, whether they were schizophrenic or, you know, I can't say, but they're out there nevertheless ranting and raving and about this and that and the other. And it was just the most entertaining, strange kind of spectacle. And it stuck with me in my head. I always remembered that, seeing that when I was a child. And then on subsequent trips to LA for usually cultural things, you know, going to museums or shows or whatever, I would re-encounter that again and again and again. People on the street ranting, and then I thought, in a way, it was like the voice of a city. You know, it was like a city speaking to you. Besides the sounds of automobiles and industry and all of that, the people were bringing you entertainment right on the street.
yeah, and there's just such a certainty and a focus and an intensity, no matter that sort of seeps through beyond what a message they might be saying. There's this, you know, it reminds me of like Wise Blood, you know, where he describes that Flannery O'Connor book in the film I'm more familiar with because I'm more of a film guy, but just like where Enoch Emery talks about, like, you have this thing in your blood and you got to do these things, and it's like, I'm not saying a prophet, but it's like being a prophet, but it isn't. But I mean that people are driven with this inner passion, and that's striking, you know. And you want to, and I've always been interested and drawn to people who have that intensity. You know, they might, it's sort of like it's attractive, and even when it's off kilter, you're like, it's actually more attractive because like there's an individualism that's just, or this certainty that's and a fire that's coming through that you would want to document it. If you did have a camera, you would point to that person with that intensity and that fire. So it's really nice to be able to be there and have all these different um, parts of the city at that time, come together without any commentary. You don't have a commentary going like, oh, this person. I mean, it reminds me of Hollywood, Mondo Hollywood, which I only saw recently, which is an interesting movie from. It's got a. It's sort of just documenting the times,
Yeah.
and this that has more, but I felt akin to that. Plus, it was also just I lived in LA for like a year or whatever in 1992, and I experienced an earthquake and the LA riots, and
Ah,
um um and then I left. I don't know. I came back to New York, but I also was like grew up in sort of suburbs, and then wanted to come to the intensity of New York City, even though I thought I'm going to get murdered as soon as I walk out of Port Authority. I was like, even if I do, I'd rather be here in the focus of that intensity than not. But so did these do you search out the stories, or did they find you, or a combination of both?
well, it all depends upon the project. In that particular one, you're talking about Ultra Megalopolis. I actually went out hunting for people who were street preachers and street performers and that sort of thing. That was the beginning of it. And at the same time, this whole graffiti art uh, thing exploded and was
Yeah, I was going to
everywhere.
say, yeah.
It was simultaneous to that. Yeah. So
And
then
you
I,
spend a lot of time on the work, and I'm like, yeah, because this is going to be gone in a few days. But I
yeah,
think I showed a great reverence in that, and a love for your subject, or a respect for your subject, that you sort of lingered on these things. How do you get within these worlds without getting knocked over the head? Are you there alone with a camera, or have you had encounters with?
yeah, I,
Yeah.
I, I can't think of a time. Well, I can think of one incident,
Okay.
and I've been doing this a long time, but um, I've always felt safe, and it's probably I don't know that if it's delusional of me to feel that way,
Well, does
but
the
I've always
camera
had
protect you? The camera protect you, or
in a way you get
yeah,
kind of lost in what you're shooting.
yeah.
People have you know people on the street and in urban settings and stuff have always left me alone. I'm a pretty big imposing guy anyway, but I've always been left alone. I can't think of a time ever when I was attacked. The only time I was ever attacked was at a punk rock club, and I had been talked, and it was kind of late in the game too, because I lost interest in punk rock a long time ago. I mean, I started going to shows kind of late in the game, about between 1980 and 83, and then I think toward the end of 83, um, I just stopped going to punk rock shows. I just the I still have all those records and everything, but anyway, I would go every week to a punk rock gig or whatever between 80 and 83. But this is sometime later. This is like I was living in Echo Park, and I was going down to the bullfights in Tijuana and accumulating footage for a documentary that I later put together called Tarabolium. And while I was living in Echo Park, this fellow, he was the boyfriend of one of my neighbors, told me that he was visiting from Chicago, and he wanted to see the Mentors perform.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I hadn't seen the Mentors in years, and I had befriended El Duce and was pretty good friends with him. And I used to hang out at the strip joint that he worked at. At the strip joint, he was known as Mr. Wonderful. That was his name there. And he was the guy that played the music, projected the pornographic films, and introduced all the stripper ladies.
It wasn't Jumbo's Clown Room, was it?
No, no, it
That's
was
my favorite name for a strip club, but keep going.
bar seating. It was a place
Okay.
called the Ivar Theater.
Okay.
And this place was, it was like a hellhole. I mean, it reeked of pine sol the minute you walked in the door. you know what I mean by that, it's like
Yeah.
one of those grim places that is could never clean.
Floor sticky.
Yeah, the floors. It was just really, really rough. And anyway, he I'm digressing because that's another story. But anyway, he was the DJ and master of ceremonies there at Mr. Wonderful. But like back, I guess fast forward to 1990, I guess. So I was living in Echo Park. This guy wants to go to a mentors gig, so I said, okay, I'll bring my camera. I haven't talked to El Duce in years. It'll be fun to reunite with him. So I brought my camera with me, my video camera, and I started filming. The minute I got there in the parking lot, there was El Duce holding court in the parking lot, drinking with all of his fans and stuff. So I just started shooting and filming. And I got all this great footage of Duce, and he's like a real great performer, and he's very, very funny. And he just launched into the most amazing monologues and stuff. And so I'm just shooting him, and then the show starts, and I kind of placed myself on the floor with a pillar behind myself, and point the camera up at the stage. The stage was like about 3 feet maybe off the floor, and the mentors start playing. Well, people are slam dancing during all this, and it was getting a little rough and rowdy, but I felt, once again, I felt protected. And this asshole got up on the stage and deliberately came down on my head with his boot and just
Jesus.
knocked his boot into my head, and my glasses flew off, my camera broke into about 3 different pieces, and I was scrambling on the floor, blood running down my face, to pick up the pieces of my camera, and wanted to report this fucker to the police for assaulting me, and that never came to pass. The bartender at this joint wouldn't let me call the police, so I had to go outside and call the cops from a payphone. But by then, the guy had already split.
Yeah.
I knew that I was after him. But that's the only time ever that I was attacked in public.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks.
And I ended up, I had this footage of the mentors that ends with me getting slammed and the camera breaking.
But you don't have footage of the guy. You don't have a freeze frame of that's the angel with the knife, like in Altamont.
You can see the fucker in there. There's no freeze frame, but you see him in there slam dancing.
Officer, it's that guy.
I
Put him on a wanted poster. All right. Well, I mean,
what's funny is that I was kind of traumatized by that.
I would be.
I just kept it in my archives for a long time, and then somebody talked to me into releasing it, and I thought, and it was long enough. Years had passed. It was long enough. I thought, yeah, this would be kind of fun to release, and I did. And the bass player for the Mentors saw it, said it was absolutely great, and every Mentors fan has to have it. It was like a great blurb that I put on there, and so I sell that on my website.
So you posted the whole concert, ending with you getting.
Well, up to the point where I get beat up. So
of course.
About half, Steve, maybe right. About a third of the show.
When your camera breaks, it really puts a damper on a filmmaker. I don't know how, but
yeah. I mean, I pick up the remains of the camera and it's still rolling, but there's no sound. And then you see this kind of moves around a lot, and then it ends with my camera being placed on the bar, and then you see, and then you hear a brief little bit of sound, and then it just shuts off. That's
wow.
But
so you're still shooting in 4x3.
Oh yeah, Palace of Wonders. I kept the 4x3 format because
the old footage.
It was all shot with mini DVs on mini DV. While I was there, I thought, well, I'm going to take advantage of my trip to New York because I had never been to New York, and there were all these things I wanted to do. I was married at the time, so I brought my wife, and she didn't want to do half of the things that I wanted to.
Of course. Yeah.
Number one was I wanted to visit the Mad Magazine headquarters.
Yeah.
I grew up with Mad Magazine.
Me too. Yeah.
And the second thing I wanted to do is go to Coney Island and eat a Nathan's hot dog.
Uh-huh.
Does that sound nuts? I mean, that's those are my two like priorities in New York.
But you didn't ride the Cyclone?
No,
The thing's like wobbling and stuff and made of wood kind of with some metal. Okay, so you're not that,
I had my last
you're crazy but not stupid, right?
roller coaster ride when I was approximately 5 years old. My parents took me to this place in Long Beach called the Pike, and they had an old roller coaster made out of wood that was from the turn of the century. This motherfucker, and it would like it was just the most violent, vicious fucking thing to put yourself through. And my parents, I guess I must have talked to my parents into riding it because they let me ride it, but they told me that when I got off the ride, my face was completely white like a ghost, and I didn't talk for like 3 days after.
Wow. So that was the first and the last?
Yeah, it was just like, whoa, that was heavy. And then there's a movie, Ray Dennis Steckler movie.
Yeah.
That takes place on the Pike and gives you he mounted the camera inside one of the cars.
Yes, Incredibly Strange Creatures. Yeah, that has the, yeah.
You could take that ride virtually by watching Incredibly Strange.
Yeah, I just saw Beth B's documentary on Lydia Lunch, and somebody talks about her riding the Cyclone on acid, and all of her, fellow passengers or friends who went on the Cyclone were all terrified, but Lydia's on acid, having the time of her life. So, and she was there during the Q&A with Beth B at IFC a couple of Wednesdays ago, and she hasn't lost her edge. And it's funny that so, all right, I have another prepared. What?
I met Lydia briefly a long time ago when she was dating a fellow named Gene Gregorites, who is a writer who had interviewed me. He had done this great interview with me in a it was a book called Sex and Guts by Gene Gregorites and Lydia Lunch, and he interviewed me in this thing. So he was living with her in Glendale at the time. So I got to hang out with Lydia Lunch a little bit and ask her questions about all the things I wanted to know about the new wave movement and James Chance and all that stuff. And so that was really fun. She was a really nice lady. I liked her. She was really friendly and warm and a cool person.
So was film your first love as a kid? Was that the first thing that turned you on as a kid?
Actually, well, yeah, I mean, that was always there. I mean, my parents were cinephiles, and so they turned me on to all of the best. Now, when I was a kid, like you had to wait for it to come on TV, or you'd go out, and see something at the movies. But they didn't show like old movies in movie theaters. You had to wait for them to come on television, and there were no VCRs to tape anything. So you would read your TV guide in advance and circle anything that was of interest to you. And so that's the way you went about it. It was a lot tougher to see what you wanted to see.
So the first films that really got you was when you were watching TV and you couldn't go to the movies?
No, my folks would take me to the movies every week.
The drive-in?
Drive, yeah, but mainly movie palaces, movie theaters, because it was like we weren't religious at all. I was never baptized in any kind of religion or anything. So that was kind of like our church was going to the movies, and we do it almost every weekend. It was that affordable and fun. And
yeah. I remember being in the back seat of a drive-in. We saw Patton, we saw Rosemary's Baby, we saw what else? And then they would take us to the kids' films like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and I don't know. It was one of them where what's his name's father is like laughing and then he starts flying, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. It's like Who's the guy who plays the Bat Guano in Doctor Strangelove? It's his father.
Sterling Hayden,
No, no. It's
Colonel
you're gonna
Bancroft.
have to answer to the Coca-Cola company.
Oh,
That guy's father. What?
Keenan Wynn.
Yeah, Fred Gwynn, his father, played like I guess this character in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and he's singing the song "I love to laugh," ha, ha, ha. And about three quarters in, he starts flying, and I was like, this was the coolest thing as a kid. But and then I guess we took karate, and then we talked about my father into taking us to Enter the Dragon, which was an R-rated movie, and then I was like hearing all these things about Cuckoo's Nest from the older kids, and I was like, Dad, can I go this? And he's like, it's R-rated, and I was like, yeah, but so was Enter the Dragon. He's like, all right. So my father, bless his heart, would take me to like Dog Day Afternoon and Once Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and like I saw The Mechanic with Charles Bronson, all this like R-rated stuff. Also, we saw Papillon. I remember where the guy gets his head chopped off and the blood goes on the lens. But I think it's like when stuff hits you at a certain age, your receptors are more open and it sort of goes deeper before you bring up a wall.
I
What
think
was the
I mean, I think early childhood into your teens is it's like those are the formative years where you can be really affected by just about everything. And I mean, because I think back on it, like, well, why did The Exorcist scare me so much? And I'm not Catholic, or anything like that. That movie really fucked with me, and
yeah.
and I was having real nightmares after seeing that fucking thing.
It's like
And
before you
then,
develop a goalie, to block the puck from coming at you.
yeah,
But yeah, but
well,
no, that movie is genuinely scary, and I've always thought they never thought about the idea that Reagan was sexually abused, and that this is a. I only heard that later, but tell me more about. And I remember seeing House of Dark Shadows because we'd see Dark Shadows after we got
oh
home.
yeah,
So
well,
and then seeing House of Dark Shadows, I was like 6 or something, and we'd see it with a bunch of kids. And then, but when the time came where Julia realizes that Barnabas isn't enjoying his cure from vampirism by courting her, but Barnabas is taking his availability to come out in sunlight and his leaving the vampire existence to court somebody else. She's like, F Barnabas, and she gives him a huge dose of the cure, which like freaks him out, and he starts to become look as old as he was as a vampire, and he does this old age makeup that Dick Smith made, and that just freaked the hell out of me. I ran from the theater, but then the rest of my life I made films that freaked other people out, so that's how it goes.
well, I think even like I mean, way back. I mean, in kindergarten when I was 5 years old, I was having like conversations with other kids on the playground about Frankenstein and the Wolfman and Dracula. I mean, these were the things that were on TV constantly, and especially on Saturday afternoons, they'd have monster movies on TV, and monster culture was so big then. I mean, well, I was reading the Famous Monsters of Filmland when I was a toddler, and I was collecting bubblegum cards of monsters saying wacky, funny things, things like that. And it was like monster culture was real big. And like, I think by the time, I mean, when my parents took me to see Fantasia when I was like, I don't know, 5 years old, something like it. We went to Hollywood to see it because it was playing on a giant, I think it was playing at the Cinerama Dome. It was playing on a huge screen, and that was the only place it was playing. So my folks took me to see Fantasia, and that really made an impact on me. The Night on Bald Mountain sequence with the devil, you know, that was shocking and exciting. And the other one that really got me was, and we saw it at the movies, was Jason and the Argonauts. Oh my God, that was incredible. And so, and you were learning Greek mythology at the same time. You're watching this spectacular Ray Harryhausen movie, with skeletons, sword fighting and stuff. And
Yeah.
that thing still blows my mind even today. I mean, if you watch that on DVD today, it's still as thrilling as it ever was. But as a child, that just was fucking mind blowing. And the
And
movies were all mind blowing. And my folks, they would turn me on there. They're all of their favorites, you know,
what
and
were their favorites?
they were all kind of dark, you know, like they loved Alfred Hitchcock the most.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
my
got,
mother loved Alfred Hitchcock. She was like, "Strangers on a Train, you got to go see that." So she would
oh
insist
yeah,
that I went to the Repertory Theater, and it's a hell of a film. It's as contemporary
oh it is,
today as
oh yeah,
we watched it recently, my wife and I, and it was like this holds up like
oh all
incredibly.
of them do. I
Yeah,
mean,
and like Rope is incredible. I mean, I don't know, I just watch that all the time.
oh Hitchcock's the best.
Yeah,
I would have to say that he's my favorite film director of all
yeah.
of them.
Hitchcock and Kubrick for me were
Yeah,
the things where I was like, I saw, I was obsessed with Clockwork Orange because I was forbidden to see it.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'd read about him, and I'd say, "Mom, what is Lolita about?" She's like, "Well, it's about an old man who likes a young girl to sit on his lap." And I was like, "All right, I know not to go beyond with more questions, but I would see these pictures of Clockwork Orange, and then just the design was so alluring, and but then when I finally saw it, I was like horrified. But I was like, but then and I think I was into the movies, but I think when I saw 2001 on the screen, there were moments where I was like, what they call pure cinema or whatever, where you're just there with the image and sort of the poetry that leaks in through some of the commercial films, and I was like, that's where I want to be. That's where that 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 spoke to me as like maybe I can do this, and also seeing going into a sort of a local film like summer institute or whatever that the college professors would make if you won an award. And I saw Meshes of the Afternoon for the first time, and going like, and how powerful that was, and what you could do.
Have you ever seen her film Maya Deren? You're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Have you ever seen the Divine Horseman?
the film, because
It's
she,
called.
yeah, I don't know. I've seen what,
It, it's about it's about voodoo in Haiti.
but it wasn't finished.
No, it was well, it was edited after her death, but it is absolutely you got to put that on your list of must see
Is it
movies.
on YouTube? I must have seen
I
some of it.
probably I
Yeah.
think it is.
All right,
They
I'm
might
writing
be
it
called
down.
something else on YouTube.
I know we have the book,
The
and
Divine.
I'm a fan. I'm also like, I wonder about, Alexander Hammond and how influential he might be, because he seemed like a super smart and talented filmmaker. He made that Secret Life of Cats or whatever, which is amazing. And I'm just wondering whether he's an unsung cinema hero.
I don't know anything about Alex.
Alexander Hammond was Maya Daren's, I think, husband at the time that they made
I did
Meshes of the Afternoon. I'm
the
just
one
like,
that got me
this is a what?
the one that really hooked me with Maya Deren. I like Meshes of the Afternoon. It's a beautiful film, but Divine Horseman, man,
Okay,
like like if you don't believe in voodoo,
you
you
will
will
after the end of. Okay.
say, yeah, yeah, there's such a thing as voodoo,
Yeah, I always had a soft spot for voodoo.
and
Um,
you see the effects on people who are possessed. And let me tell you something, their eyes light up. It is so fucking weird. And she spent, I don't know, 7.5 years living in Haiti, documenting voodoo rituals. And
wow.
it is the heaviest fucking thing. It's one of the heaviest movies I've ever seen. That one in Titicut Follies by Frederick Wise.
Yeah, I have that. I haven't seen it yet.
Titicut
Uh,
Follies.
yeah.
You're in for a real hell ride there. That thing is a motherfucker. I mean, a lot of these films, it's interesting. A lot of these mind blowing, like you mentioned, Clockwork Orange. I was totally obsessed with the Clockwork Orange as well. I saw that movie when I was way underage, and it was X-rated. And my friend and I conned my friend's dad into taking us to see A Clockwork Orange, and he counseled us. He said, well, because we were both tall kids, he said, just wear a high collared shirt, stand straight, and just think of yourself as being like 18 years old.
Ass- what is it?
I was only 14 or something. But
Assume the attitude of an 18-year-old.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We walked. It was a movie theater in Hollywood, which would probably help. We walked right the fuck in to watch A Clockwork Orange, and my friend described the experience as being bludgeoned over the head, and it kind of was. I mean, it was like, oh my God, this is just. There's nothing like it before or after, and in many many ways, it was just it was a perfect movie. And I immediately went out and I bought the soundtrack, by his name back then was Walter Carlos.
But it's Wendy now. Yeah. Is
And,
she still alive?
oh yeah, Wendy's still a
Yeah.
kicking.
Yeah.
There's a new documentary I want to see about sisters with transistors. Is what it's called.
Wow. Cool.
Women
Oh
in the
yeah.
world of electronic music.
Oh yeah. I think I saw an ad for that. But
But
yeah,
what was cool about Kubrick, I love Kubrick too, and
but it's like it's such a scientific approach to something so horrendous. I mean, I kind of like the scientist artist in a way. I like that push pull because Kubrick was very much about gathering a lot of facts, especially with Doctor Strangelove. He gathered all the facts, and then he built a story, and he wanted to do a straight story with Strangelove. But then he had these sort of midnight, things would go into the wee hours and it would get silly, and he realized it would probably go over better as a dark comedy. And I think it does, but I mean I think it encompasses the reality and the absurdity with it. And
well,
for
that's like
him to kind of like dissect the I mean there's downsides to it too, because I don't know if evil or whatever is an isolated incident. I think it works within a I don't know, but I mean, I think it's still relevant today, Clockwork Orange, in a weird way, as far as like what the power of the state versus the individual. I mean, the implications are
the strange thing I was going to tell you is that now I was so obsessed with Clockwork that I memorized all the dialogue. I bought that. There was a book that came out,
I have that book, yeah,
right, that has every shot from
yeah,
Clockwork with the dialogue that accompanies the shot. The
yeah,
entire script illustrated with photographs from
yeah. I'm a proud owner of that. Yeah,
that book came out, and it's like I still have it. It's like this dog-eared thing in my library. But I was really I saw it way too many times. I became overexposed to A Clockwork Orange, I think, and then I just couldn't watch it anymore. And
yeah,
then I tried to watch it a couple years ago, and it was just so violent that like at the age I'm at now, I blame it on my age, I think, because I can't watch a lot of violent content now. It disturbs me even more now. Back then, it was like a piece of cake. In fact, I think I was a lot. I think children and teenagers especially are a lot braver at what they'll take that roller coaster ride, with film. And I had a wife too who was, she and I got a divorce, but she was really into ultra violent films. I mean, like beyond what I could stomach.
yeah. Like I've heard about a Serbian film or whatever, but I don't feel the need to see it. What?
That was nothing. I mean,
That was nothing.
well, she was like also into illegally, but downloading torrents of these things because she was hooked up with all these fan bases throughout Europe and stuff that were into like just the most extreme content, and like and so we would have movie nights. We'd take turns. I'd show her
What?
one of my
Yeah,
favorites, and she'd
yeah,
show me one of hers. And I had to sit through that shit. And it was like it was in that era where they called it torture porn,
right.
and it was an era where that was just like the big thing. And I
You cried uncle? You finally said uncle?
no, I put up with it because I was married to her, but I don't
you
like
you made her go to see Dick DiPartolo in New York, but she made
well
you watch these films. Different
well
woman? All right.
I think that kind of like yeah, I think it has reverberations up to today because when Palace of Wonder, I was putting together Palace of Wonders, I could have put all kinds of things in there that were disturbing and violent, all of that, but I left all that out. I consciously wanted to make a film that people would find enjoyable and make them feel happy
Right.
and actually celebrate life. You know,
Yes.
I'm way into that now.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all your subjects, I think I get a sense that you are bearing witness and you're not looking up or down to your subject, and you're kind of celebrating just the experience of being in their presence. And even when you do speak during Ultra Megalopolis, when you're videotaping sort of the dig up of the McMartin uh, preschool, to find tunnels, and this old woman sort of walks by, and you're pointed towards the excavation, but you hear her saying idiots or something, and you turn around and you speak to this woman, and I it's the only time I got a sense of you in your film, and it's very much non-judgmental, very much tell me your experience, let me know what's going on with you. So, and she says her thing, but I like the fact that you're not, I mean, it's a strong film, but I don't feel pushed. I feel like it's bearing witness, and I think that's the best, like documentaries or whatever. I mean, I guess Frederick Weissman, you mentioned Titicus Follies, but
Yeah.
speak to
Well,
that, I guess.
he's like one of the grandfathers of cinema verite, which I was really, really into when I was a teenager. Like on TV, there was a TV show. Well, on PBS, they would show a Frederick Wiseman documentary every year.
Like
Every year,
like
and
high school or
yeah, high school, basic training, hospital. I mean, these were all pretty hard hitting, heavy documentaries. The heaviest one was Titicus Follies, and I had to wait until I was in film school at USC to see Titicus Follies in a sophomore psychology course,
not even
introduction.
a film course?
Yeah, because that's the only way you could see Titicus Follies. Like there
You
was
mean
this,
legally or
it was banned,
wow.
and the only way you could legally see it is if it was offered by a psychology course at a big university. So
Wow.
that's how I saw it for the first time, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" It was like just seeing like a Clockwork Orange for the first time. It was like, "Oh my god!" But it was real. It was like a real violence, real horror. Real horror, and
Meaning like human. Like these are humans doing this. This isn't
yeah,
Wolfman or Frankenstein or Dracula. It's actually human beings. And that really scares the shit out of you.
these aren't people with small problems. These are criminally insane people. And the people who are the administrators of the criminally insane
Yeah, the
are
staff.
more criminally insane than the inmates. So
That's
it's like a torture camp to boot. You're watching this institutional violence against human beings, and it's
and
just like,
also they
oh,
allowed themselves to be filmed, which sort of speaks to the fact that it's been normalized in their reality, that they don't see what's going on as aberrant. And
yeah.
that's amazing too.
Well, that was Weisman's MO, was that he spoke about that. He said that if you show up at a place with cameras, for the first couple of days, people are going to be a little uneasy. But
Self-conscious.
after about a week or so, they just forget you're there, and they just go on, and then they become themselves. And then that's how he catches people doing outrageous things.
Do you think that's been lost? I mean, I think everybody is camera ready now. I mean, it's like,
Well, yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, yeah. I mean, like, everybody has a camcorder in their pocket essentially with their smartphone.
and I think there's that, because you see photographs and movies of people who haven't seen themselves photographed, and there's this bit of an innocence and a bit of a raw humanity that's almost shocking sometimes. With the guy like showing how to sing his songs with his hands or whatever, and there's no sense of that he's seen his own image. But I think now everyone is very clear about how they're coming off, and if a camera is there, I think they snap into a persona. Like I think they put their mask on, and I'm interested in generationally the influence of like those fantasy role playing games having an effect of
Oh yeah.
like what is that? I just sort of like as a toss out of like because I think everybody has like a public persona and a private persona, and then sometimes people want to reconcile, like, oh, well, you have to be consistent within this thing rather than I'm managing the moment, you know, and a lot of people are managing the moment and rather than seeing having a consistency. But I don't know. I've always led to some extent a double life, and I always assumed everybody else did. Do you have any comments on my rant?
Oh, and living a double life.
I don't know, or people being conscious of being filmed and whether they're putting on an act or something.
Oh well, I don't know it because it's gone. It's kind of
All right. Well,
it's
you
hard
went
to
to.
answer that. Yeah,
That's
because
fine. That's fine. Did you go to? You went to film school?
yeah, I
What
dropped
was
out.
your? Yeah, I just got suicidal. I didn't drop out. I just fantasized about jumping out the window, but I got my degree. What?
I said that's film school will do that.
So I'm a normal person in an abnormal situation rather than the other way around.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, the older I get, the more I just don't know. It's like the institutions of education just seem to be like brainwashing institution. They seem to their whole purpose is to brainwash large groups of people to think the exact same way. And you
Yeah, and I
find,
think I mean, it's like now that because it used to be that you couldn't get your hands on film. It was too expensive and the cameras were bulky and like everybody. So the means are more in our hands than ever to just you have, you know, a passion or whatever to go out and start filming it. No, you don't need permission to start something, and you don't need like, oh, it has to be a certain budget. You just go out and do it. And I don't know. I was reading what's his name story, the guy that Robert McKee, and I'm like, he never mentions Hitchcock, so I'm like, I don't know if I trust this guy. When as he's mentioning a lot of like great filmmakers, like he never mentions Hitch.
yeah, it's
And
well, right there, that would
I started to stop reading. I was like, wait a second, yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of issues with Easy Rider too, like Terry Southern, who wrote, Doctor Strangelove.
All the funny lines in Doctor Strangelove, yeah,
He made the film a comedy.
yeah, probably came up with all the cool names too, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like a big influence on that movie and impact on it. And the same with Easy Rider. And Dennis Hopper tried to steal the credit away from Terry Southern. It was
Yeah.
just really ugly.
Did Terry Southern do all the cool stuff like you're bought and sold in the marketplace and the alien thing? Is that Terry? Do you know?
Not sure it's possible.
It's got to be, right?
I mean, if it's dark and funny, it's probably Terry.
What?
If it's really dark and funny, it's
Yeah,
probably
and smart and like prescient. I mean what I think is great about Strangelove is the whole uh uh fluoride conspiracy. Like now
yeah.
conspiracy theories is, you know,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like endemic or whatever it's called. It's
Fluoridation, Mandrake. You ever heard of fluoridation?
and apparently that's based on a real guy, but it's like that whole thinking is you know, it's become such a huge thing these days.
Tommy plot to sap the impurity of our precious bodily fluids, Mandrake.
I
I came
can't
up with
I
this theory.
what?
I came up with this theory during the course of making
The
love.
physical act of love.
Physical act of love.
Since I got married, I can't recite movie dialogue. You know, you make compromises when you get married, and I had to give up reciting Barry Lyndon and Rope and
Oh,
and Strange Love, and it's such, or God forbid, Glenn Ross, but it's a tension reliever, AIDA, attention, interest, decision, action. Have you made your decision for Christ? And action. Go and do likewise, gentlemen. If you don't, I got no sympathy for you. Close or you hit the bricks. My wife is is out of earshot, so we can recite. How was high school for you, Larry?
high school was great. It was a ball.
Okay, good.
I mean,
It's not always the case, but yeah.
a hard on for 4 years.
I
No, but
skipped.
it was really fun, and I when I was 16 years old, I guess I was a junior in high school. I made a 60 millimeter sound sync film based um, on what's his name, the guy that wrote oh god, J.D. Salinger, A Perfect Day for Banana Fish, a short story of his, and I rehearsed my actors for almost an entire year because I had very little money. I think that my life savings at the time was $1,000, and so that was just enough money to rent Eclair NPR like 60 millimeter camera and a Nagra NPR recorder for a weekend. And I think for a Saturday because the rental place in Hollywood was closed on Sunday.
Yeah,
So
because when that camera rolls, the money is ching 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 ching. So you better have your rehearsed, because there's no take two.
everybody had to know their lines.
Yeah, like today you can put on video and just let it run. It's like you really had to do your homework back then.
Very different back then. But yeah, I was in high school. Yeah, my also I have to mention I had a great teacher in high school named Bobby Sumter, and he was a cinephile, and he taught English, or no, history, honors history. That's it. And so I had his honors history course, and as a result of that, I saw some of the most remarkable films that were life changing. I saw Night and Fog.
Wow.
I saw
Yeah.
If by
You saw
Lindsay,
If. Yeah. Okay.
which is about
Hmm?
rebellion in school.
What was that again? Yeah, for a high school to show If is a risky business.
Yeah, this is back in the
A Night and Fog is like plowing, corpses, and I'm like that I saw. I think I did see it in high school actually at that film symposium or whatever it was for the summer. Like I won a student film festival, and one of the prizes was going to this a film institute at the local college during the summer. And I think that's where I saw Night and Fog. And it's like, that's like, and then I think I saw Olympia. Did you see Olympia, that recent show? Yeah.
I saw
Or no, I
Olympic,
saw the Will one, not Olympia, but the Triumph of the Will.
yeah. Wait, we saw. He showed us that too, Triumph of the Will.
That's okay. So it's
And oh my God, it just goes on and on. Like some of the he knew Charlie Chaplin. He was friends with Charlie Chaplin, believe it or not. And Charlie Chaplin at that time owned the rights to Modern Times and The Great Dictator. And the only way you could see those films is if you wrote to Charlie Chaplin and asked him to rent a print directly from him.
Jesus Christ.
And so my high school teacher did that. And so we got to see Modern Times and The Great Dictator.
And the speech in The Great Dictator is amazing. I mean, it's sort of been trivialized in YouTube, but I mean, it's still a killer speech.
Oh, and we saw by Guio Pontecuervo, a film called I can't. Oh, Queimada. It's called. But the English translation is Burn. You ever seen Burn?
With Brando?
Yeah.
I never saw Burn. I'd heard about it. Yeah, got to see that. All right, I'm writing that down.
It is so good. I saw that in high school.
Fucking Brando.
And then two really uber political films. One of them was called In the Year of the Pig.
I heard of that.
All about Nixon. and the other one was called Millhouse, also by about
So this guy wasn't a fan.
anti-Vietnam War movie.
What about Hearts and Minds? Did you see that?
I saw Hearts and Minds, but
Never saw it.
I saw
Yeah.
that many years. I saw that at a revival house that I used to go to all the time called the Fox Venice Theater, and it was okay. You know, but I think Millhouse and In the Year of the Pig were a lot better.
Okay,
Or
good.
Bill De Antonio, who's like this really hardcore political. He made a film about the Weatherman. He was
Oh
proud
yeah. Recently, I saw the recent film on the
of
Weatherman.
he made the original one.
Okay. I
But
have some more prepped questions. I wanted to go back to, is it a great day for banana fish?
oh, A Perfect Day for Banana.
Perfect day for banana fish. How did that turn out? Were you happy with results?
Well, the thing, yeah, it's a beautiful film.
Do you still have it?
Everybody that's seen it says that it's great and it's very poetic and beautiful. I was shot in black and white, and I did it in a manner that suggests that it takes place in 1947 at the end of the World War II, and the same year that it was finished, the movie Chinatown came out by Polanski, and I was watching Chinatown, and I was like, as a 16-year-old kid, I'm I'm thinking, oh, we're on the same wavelength, Roman Polanski and me. That's pretty cool. You know, we're making this period piece. You know, wait, back when people were doing that. You know, so it was really fun to see Chinatown at the same time come out. But the odd thing about A Perfect Day for Banana Fish is that J.D. Salinger hated motion pictures, and he hated the motion picture industry, and he said he never wanted to have any of his books turned into movies, and that he would sue anybody who tried, you know. And so I knew that as a teenager. I thought, well, I'll never be able to show this public, you know, for sell tickets to see it or anything. So it's just kind of languished. I made a crappy VHS copy of it a long time ago of the work print. I have the original print, the work print, in film cans.
Can you get it digitized?
I've never digitized it.
No.
No,
So yeah, I mean, I guess Salinger had the same attitude that Colden Caulfield did, that he felt they were phonies in Hollywood
yeah,
and so forth. I mean, it was eye-opening to hear John Gilmore's take on the treatment of them in the Hollywood system as far as like a Me Too kind of situation. You know, it's like I shouldn't be surprised, but I kind of was surprised
well,
and sort of disgusted.
yeah, his
What?
whole take on it was that if you were a young actor, a male actor,
Yeah,
that you were flung into this homosexual meat rack situation where you had to, you know, get your cock sucked, and you had to suck cock to make it rise up the ladder and Hollywood. That was his attitude. But I thought, like, how much of that was just sour grapes on his part, that he didn't have what it took to be an actor in Hollywood. I don't know that that's necessary. I mean, you know, there's always been a casting couch, I guess, for both sexes
right.
in Hollywood, and that's no, you know, that's no shock to anybody, I guess.
Yeah.
And
It was also
yeah,
what?
yeah.
It was also you know, kind of a bummer to hear that Dean thought his work was getting worse, you know. It's just like, you know, but whatever. I mean, it's like, you know, you think of Dennis Hopper as like, he was in Rebel Without a Cause. It's like, what, with the 60s and the whole change happening, what part would he have played within that insurgence? Would he become more established, or would he be supporting sort of the underground or I don't know. I would just speculate about that, but
I think he would have done a major movie star like he was after his films were released. I mean, they were insanely popular, and he proved himself that he was a terrific actor, and he would be on the same par with all of the great actors we celebrate today. I think.
yeah.
I have no doubt of that. His career would have gone on and on if he hadn't have been in the car accident.
Right. And I think it, you know, it bums me out only because I agree with you. He would have been great no matter what he did because he was dedicated to bring a certain authenticity and a rawness and an honesty to his work. And but it was you know, it's disappointing to hear that a sort of genius, if you will, self-image is like so out of touch with the work that he's actually doing, seeing it from the outside, you know. So and that separation between, you know, the isolation of him thinking his work is getting worse when his career from the outside is getting better. But I found, and it was great to hear like Curtis Harrington is in the film too, which is cool
Yeah,
because
and speaking of Curtis, Curtis made. Have you ever seen a film called Night Tide?
yeah, because Dennis Hopper's in that and Marjorie
Oh,
Cameron's in that.
that was yeah, Hopper's first starring. Like Hopper's in almost every frame of that movie, and he's young and handsome and so good, such a great actor, and he carries that movie. And what a magical film that is, Night Tide. I don't know many people that have seen it, but I'm glad you have. It's such a
Yeah,
great.
it is great. I
There,
want to see What's the Matter with Helen now.
oh, oh, you have to.
I haven't seen it, but he talks about a scene that he sort of demanded that the producers not cut, even though he knew that that would
Yeah,
be one of the cuts they would want to make.
the scene with the little midget lady,
Yeah,
and and it's like a scene that you never forget once you see it.
yeah.
It's an incredible scene in the film,
All right,
and
don't spoil it for me.
well, he's in the producers wanted to cut it because it wasn't germane to the plot. It didn't move the
Right,
plot along. But films are all great. Films are always full of scenes like that that don't necessarily move the plot along. They're just these cinematic moments that you never forget. You
right.
know, that was one of those magical moments. But what's interesting about What's the Matter with Helen is, did you know that it was written by the same Southern Gothic writer that wrote Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised, but
You know,
yeah,
the same kind of title. But yeah, yeah. Well, if you like those films, you'll love What's the Matter with Helen because it's got the same. It's almost like a horror movie. It's really really dark and good.
well, I'm gonna look. I already got a Divine Horseman, even though it doesn't claim that it's made by Maya Deren, but it might be using her footage or whatever. But I have some other stock questions. Um, Match game. Finish the phrase "Kids today blank."
Um, don't
You-
appreciate don't appreciate the past.
Okay. What's your favorite Ersatz Beatles, the Monkeys or the Ruddles or Oasis?
Oh, the monkeys.
Okay. Does does Larry Wessel have any pet?
That I mean, they're all.
What?
I've got
What?
to even. I mean, you were giving me a choice, and it's like, you want your shit cold or do you want it hot? That's the kind of choice you're giving. Take it for what it's worth. I'm not a big monkey fan.
You know, these, you
I know
know,
the Puddles were awful, and the other one, Oasis. I don't. I'm not even. I've never even listened to
you can say none of the above, you know, or pass.
it. Oh, okay.
Does Larry Wessel have any pet peeves? You can pass.
Okay, pass.
All
I'm here to complain.
right. I think that's all my questions.
Those were
I think I think I covered all my questions. Um, oh, I have probably what was your first childhood memory you can think of?
oh, that's in my memoir
It
too.
is? Is it a secret?
No, it was
People will have to read the memoir.
no. I'll
Okay.
tell you. I was 4 years old, and I was taking swimming lessons at a big hotel that's no longer there. It was called the Biltmore. It was a Biltmore Hotel, and it was right on the sand in Hermosa Beach, right up to the sand at the beach. And my mom and I went to my swimming lesson. I was 4 years old. and I took my swimming lesson from an Olympic champion, and I remember her name was Mrs. Bova. And after my swimming lesson, we're leaving the hotel. Usually we would go get a hamburger or something to eat afterwards. But there was this really peculiar smell that we didn't notice when we walked into the hotel. But when we walked out, it was really strong. It was like this really foul odor that we couldn't even imagine what the hell it could be. But we were curious, and we started walking toward the ocean where it seemed to be coming from. And there's a big sand dune on the beach obscuring our view of the water's edge. So we had to walk up the sand dune. And as we did, and as we looked over the sand dune, we could see what was causing the smell. And it was a huge beached whale, a dead whale on the sand. And that's my first childhood memory.
That's a good one because I think the olfactory memories stay with you. So, or often if you'll smell that again, yeah, that memory might come back. I mean, I think it's an anchor of some sorts.
Did you ever see La Dolce Vita by Fellini?
I have.
Do you remember the very last scene of the film?
No.
It's where a sea monster is pulled out of a dead sea monster is pulled out of the ocean, and all of these party animals like the Dolce Vita characters, they're all on the beach early in the morning after an all-night party.
Like the glitterati?
Yeah, they all go the glitterati. They all go to the beach just to sober up a little bit. And Mastriani's there, and a little girl comes up to him and recognizes him, and does that to him, and he waves back at her. And this monster is being dredged up from the ocean. It looks like it's some kind of rubber concoction that looks like a giant manta ray or something. But it's very, very peculiar scene at the end of the film. But my earliest childhood memory kind of reminds me of that. This ominous presence on this long stretch of beach.
All right, I think we'll wrap it up there. That sounds like a good place to stop.
All right.
So, what?
My dead whale story.
Perfect.
All right.
So send me or email me some links to put in the description if you want. So
just one link. Like when this pops up on YouTube, I noticed with Miss Brotman, you put her website underneath there. Just put my website. It's www.wesselmania.bigcartel.com.
Okay. If you can email me that, I'll cut and paste it. Yeah, that's what I did with hers. All right. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. All right. All the best. Okay. Keep on.
Thank you, sir.
Keep on keeping on.
I will. Peace. You can say. Peace.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Where do I stop this thing?